It is 3 o'clock in Chapin, South Carolina. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to the Capture Cast webinar for March 2024. I'm Chris Harris, Senior Enrollment Strategist here at Capture. And today we're going to talk about cleared to enroll, shaping your class with innovative yield tactics. And we are going to take a kind of a pivot to start off with everything happening FAFSA. I wanted to bring in an expert and kind of talk a little bit about that before we really talk about yield. So good afternoon, everybody. Hope all is well. Today, we're looking to answer some very specific questions. First, what is the latest on the FAFSA? Ed Recker is going to join us here in a second from his car as he's driving through the rain in Northwest Ohio. We're going to talk a little bit about FAFSA. Then we're going to come up with how can we continue to build our class right now without financial aid packages? For the longest time, we've had financial aid packages in November, December, January, February. Now it's March and ICEs are just starting to roll in. So what can we be doing right now to build that class? And lastly, what can my admissions team be doing right now to help alleviate the internal and external pressures that students and our campuses are feeling right now? So I'll give you some tips and some pointers, and actually a good takeaway that you can go download later on today as we go through that. So as we get through this, as always, welcome to Capture. We make every interaction count. And for those of you who are new to the Capture Cast, welcome. We are glad that you are here. Our mission is simple. We help our clients identify, convert, and enroll the right students by providing the right messages at the right time. Our behavioral intelligence platform combines marketing automation and predictive modeling to power and optimize your recruitment efforts. The only marketing automation platform built for enrollment management is called Engage. Engage enables you to track prospective students' behavioral data and make the relevant connections with them through dynamic, personalized, and timely communication. With the industry's most accurate predictive models, Apply and Enroll, we integrate machine learning with behavioral variables to introduce and inform your marketing outreach activities to optimize all of your resources. So as we move through, we are a managed service. So each day we're analyzing your data. We're helping you find those students. We're helping you make the right connections. As former higher education professionals, marketing gurus, and real data scientists, we take this data and build recruitment and marketing solutions that are designed for your institution. We have one platform. No need to log into 17 different places. We have one platform that you log into each day, and we provide our clients with real-time, transparent reporting so that you can make the right decisions about outreach and budgets every day. So as we do with every Capture Cast, we always start off with a poll question. And this month's poll question is simple. We're about 150 days out from the start of the fall 2024 semester. So Emily will pull it up. How are you feeling about your incoming class of students so far? Are you trending ahead of your enrollment goal? Are you on pace to hit that goal? Are you a little bit behind, but you're confident? Or you have no idea what's going to happen? And it's really interesting because I talk to a lot of people in the industry every week, and I think everybody's a little bit all over the place. Some people feel good, some people don't feel so good, and we're just trying to make the best we can with because of the financial aid piece. I was talking with a friend of mine in Chicago, and shout out to our friend Gwen at the at Concordia University in Chicago, by the way. But we were talking to another partner of ours in the Chicago area, and one of the things that we found out is that applications are up and all the numbers are up, but we're still waiting on this financial aid. So there's a lot of angst out there, and we're going to talk about that in 2 seconds here. So as these questions come in, things look a little bit all over the place. People are confident. Some people are in the middle. Some folks just don't know what's going to happen. Just kind of, whatever's going to happen there at the bottom is going to happen. So for the interest of time, let's go ahead and end the poll now. But as it looks like, again, everybody's a little maybe ahead, a little behind. It's a little spattering of everything, which is what we're really hearing out there right now. So as we get into it, we're talking a little bit about today's agenda. And there we go. Today's agenda. We're going to go through the FAFSA update real quick with Ed. We're going to talk about the challenges to yield this year. We're going to talk about some of the latest trends that we're seeing out there. We're going to talk about the importance of personalization, because I think that's something that Gen Z is really wanting to see. They're demanding it, and we need to really conform to that. We're going to talk about clearance. A lot of institutions haven't talked about clearance, but this is a good way for you to really wrap up your class and do it in a way that's systematic. As my boss, Heather Mueller, would put it, the Little Red Riding Hood stance, everything has a step. Everything has a step to get to the final goal. And then we're going to talk about what's next. So without further ado, it's time to bring in Ed Recker. Ed is the Director of High School Relationship Management at Sallie Mae, and he's joined us a few times so far to talk about FAFSA, because he's former financial aid director back in the day, and actually vice president for enrollment at the University of Findlay. But Ed, thanks for joining us today. I know it's storming in Northwest Ohio, but I appreciate you taking the time today.
No problem, Chris. Hey, always happy to join, and yeah, thank you all for having me.
Awesome. So Ed, we're going to talk a little bit about the FAFSA updates, and one of the things that has come out in this past week is that ICERs have started to flow out to some schools, but not all schools, and that there's going to be this ramp up as the Department of Ed starts sending those out. They're going to be sending out small batches, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Ed, what are you hearing in relation to how long it's going to be before really all the current ICERs are processed and out to the schools?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right, Chris. What we've been hearing is that schools are starting to receive files. Now, before everyone gets super excited about that, we are talking about incredibly small batches. I'm talking files with 1 or 2 ICERs. And for folks that aren't familiar with what an ICER is, that's the Institutional Student Information Record. So essentially, that's the FAFSA information. That's what's coming to them. So they are getting those in, one and 2 per file. So this is that initial phase where it's essentially that incredibly slow ramp up. They're wanting to make sure that the files they're sending will work. They are compatible with the student information systems, and that schools can process those. Now, you had mentioned the ramp up. So this is a relatively long runway for this. So the Department of Ed did release in an electronic announcement that the ramp up will happen over time. Those batches will get bigger and bigger but they won't start fully processing until really they feel comfortable with that. And they did leave it relatively open-ended. And then once it's fully ramped up, it's still going to take about 2 weeks for them to make it through their backlog. So we're still looking at, the ramp up started earlier this week. I would say we're estimating probably another, 3 to 4 weeks before we probably see all of that backlog cleared.
So pushing that back, then, financial aid offices. If you guys on the line today, if you're out there, go hug your financial aid director and their teams and buy them cookies and donuts and whatever they want over the next month and a half. I can't begin to tell you how important that is. Ed, the other big concern that we're hearing about right now is that the number of students, current and incoming, would be new students, new freshmen coming in this year, have really not filed the FAFSA. I had heard somewhere along the line that we're 2.5 months, almost 3 months behind in the number of FAFSA filers versus what it's been in the past. What is your sense on that?
Yeah, so per the National College Attainment Network, so NCAN, they actually have a FAFSA tracker on their website, which is pretty fantastic. Now, it is a lagging indicator. They're working off of data that's usually about 2 to 3 weeks old. But as of the most recent update, they are looking at about a 34.5% decrease year over year, given that same point in time. So again, about a 2 to 3 week lull. So we are definitely seeing that reluctance of students and families. And my understanding is this is specific to high school seniors. Those are the folks that we're seeing the biggest lag on in terms of FAFSA completion. So I agree, Chris. I mean, that's a big concern. We have seen that number start to slowly decrease, I guess, increase. Basically, the gap is closing.
Right.
But I think the bigger concern at this point is, boy, are we really going to be able to close that entire gap by the time classes start? And the answer is we just don't know that yet.
Yeah, overnight the FAFSA genie could come in and get us there, right? Which would be outstanding. But there's a lot of different factors that are going into that. So some ideas that we've come up with, and I've been on a couple calls and then talking with Ed yesterday about how we can help. I think it's important to involve influencers to help get the word out. If you're on a college campus and you're talking about your current students, involve your coaching staff, involve your advisors, involve different people on campus that have direct influence over your student body to get them to get their FAFSAs done. It's an important indicator for retention. If the student doesn't file the FAFSA and, for instance, doesn't file their housing form for the following year, red lights and sirens and all kinds of things should be going off at that point in time. Obviously, over communicate in different channels. Whether it's via text message, whether it's via newspaper ads, for goodness sake, I saw one the other day here in South Carolina, on your website, email, those kinds of things. Make sure you're over communicating in different channels saying you need to file your FAFSA. You need to file your FAFSA. A lot of times students, it just depends on what they're into that day that they'll actually see that message. Incentivize completion of the FAFSA. I've seen some colleges and universities say, hey, priority deadlines. We're going to talk about deadline here in a second, but priority deadlines, you get, priority housing placement, or you might get more financial aid if you complete the FAFSA by a certain time. But incentivizing your completion of the FAFSA is another way that you could get these FAFSAs done. Change your deadlines. And Ed, I'm going to talk to you about changing deadlines. May 1 has always been kind of the defunct, make your decision day and things like that. But a lot of schools have moved to June 1st, or have they actually done away with the deadlines. From the financial perspective, and from that, had been sitting in the VP's role. What would you be doing about your deadlines for like paying your deposits or getting your housing information? And what would you be doing about deadlines?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things, Chris. So one, I would definitely communicate, especially for schools that have historically been May 1. Make sure you're communicating to prospective students, families, and I'd say also high school counselors. Make sure they know if you're willing to work with students and families on that deadline. Please make sure you're communicating that. I think that's huge. They need to know that. They appreciate that, and ultimately it's going to, if students are sitting there kind of in that limbo, it's going to give them peace of mind that, hey, my seat's not going to evaporate if I don't commit by May 1. I mean, I think everyone knows what's going on. I can tell you from a high school counselor's perspective, because we work a lot with high school counselors, they're as frustrated as anyone is with this at this point, and the students are frustrated as well. So I think the big message really is, hey, just we're here for you. We're willing to work with you, and make sure that they understand that, so that they don't, take you off the list because they just don't know.
You say that about the high school counselors, and that's a great point, Ed. Usually we'll see on LinkedIn or on Facebook or whatever, the guidance counselors are posting, hey, Johnny has made his choice and he's going to X university, or, Cheryl is going to X college. And, there's a picture of that student with a banner or something like that. And there's a sense of pride that goes along with that. We really haven't seen that traffic start to happen yet. Which is kind of unique. Reminds me back of when, I hate to say it, COVID, when things were just a little bit off during COVID. But this is more self-inflicted, I think, in the way, and this is my dig at the Department of Ed right now, but it's kind of how indicative of how this has gone so far. The last thing is add additional virtual and on-campus sessions. I think, opening it up and having a place for students and families, whether they're current students or prospective students, to visit with your financial aid and your admissions folks online in a virtual or even in an on-campus setting is a big deal. I know a lot of colleges, universities have accepted student day coming up over the next few weeks, bringing students to campus. Orientations have already started for fall. I've seen a couple institutions already have orientations. But there is that little piece that's out there, which is that financial aid's not done yet. So being able to understand what the payment plan might look like, or what the out-of-pocket cost is going to be, is really going to put melt into a box of its own this year. And we're going to have to talk about that. Ed, are there certain things that you guys are doing at Sallie Mae to just to help with letting families know that, FAFSA is important, and, get your financial aid taken care of as soon as humanly possible?
Absolutely, Chris. So we are, I won't say in constant contact with high school counselors, but we make sure to communicate regularly with them regarding what's going on, free tools and resources to help not only them, but their students and the families they serve, just to make sure that they're aware of what's going on. They know the steps quite frankly, once things start to ramp up, and making sure that we're empowering them so that they can make the decision that's best for them and their family. So yeah, we keep those communication lines open. We hold monthly webinars on various topics, as well as we have a bank of webinar topics that are pre-recorded. So all sorts of things. We're just trying to be a resource, because we know how stressful paying for college can be in pristine conditions, and we are far from pristine conditions. So we just really want to try to let folks know, hey, we're there for you, we're here with you. Let's make sure we can get through this together.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing, is that there's a lot of information and resources all over the web right now. And I think for families, I think it's important that, and we're going to talk about communication here moving forward, but it's important that we provide as much information as we can. Ed, thank you as always. I hope all is well. Hopefully the storms don't knock out your power anymore or anything else like that. And we'll talk again very soon. Thanks, buddy.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Ed Recker, our financial aid guru friend from Sallie Mae. So as we start talking about yield and how yield goes, let's talk about some of the current challenges that are out there right now. Obviously, competition for enrolled students. With more institutions out there vying for a limited pool of students, competition has become pretty fierce. This challenge is exacerbated by demographic shifts. We've talked about the demographic cliff many, many times here on the Capture Cast. And there's been a bit of a globalization of higher education as well. More students, especially some of the international student populations, have decided to stay home, or they're doing it more online. We're talking also about the complexity and perceived value of college admissions. There's a struggle with declining yield rates, but it seems to be that more and more institutions the last couple of years have seen more applications onto their campus, but yet their yield is going down because they're accepting more students, but they're still not yielding anymore. So there seems to be a bit of a disconnect. This could be because of selectivity from that institution, financial considerations, obviously, as we talked a little bit about here a minute ago, and the complexity of the college decision-making process. There is so much information out there, and there's so much, and I hate to use the word noise, but I think that's what it is. Our college does this, our university does that, and it pulls its students different ways. I think that's a big thing, and we have to help students kind of navigate that noise as they go through this process. Financial considerations, just mentioned that, but affordability and accessibility are a significant concern for many prospective students and their families right now. The economy is a little off right now. There's been rising tuition costs, concerns about student loan debt, and the availability of financial aid at some institutions has really had an impact on where students are looking to go to college, and even if they're considering going to college at this point in time right now. So I think that's an important thing for us to kind of worry about and think about some more of those financial considerations. Engagement and personalization, I think that's a big one as well. Are we personalizing that outreach and engagement with admitted students? Can be challenging. Again, there's a lot of noise that is out there right now. And I think that's one of the bigger things, is that as you build out your communication plans, you need to have behavioral information behind it. What is that student doing? What are kind of indicators are they giving you so that you're giving them the right information at the right time as they go through this process? Again, in keeping that noise down, you don't need to send 500 emails every week, as some institutions do. And lastly, retention and persistence. And I would say this, if you are recruiting students just for their freshman year and really not thinking about what the future looks like, we call it recruiting graduates. I think that's something that you really need to start to work on campus, is that the best way to grow enrollment is not just through by bringing freshmen in, but it's actually by retaining those who you bring in. So just make sure that you guys are taking a look at, those challenges that are happening on college campuses to support students, whether it's obviously accessibility and affordability, but what about students who need adequate academic and social resources to help them navigate once they get onto your campus so that they're successful. Some of the latest trends that are out there: data analytics and predictive modeling. Obviously, predictive analytics and data analytics and predictive modeling and all these things, they've been around for quite some time, but they're starting to get better at it. There's not only taking a look at historical data, but they're using machine learning to look at other demographics that are outside of what your history is to identify students earlier on in the process who might do well on your college campus. So make sure that you are utilizing your data analytics and your predictive models that you have that are built into your CRM or even into your marketing automation platform. Virtual engagement with faculty, staff, and students. I think right now it's a big deal that you move beyond um, just the normal admissions counselor interactions. What we learned at COVID-19, accelerated the adoption of the virtual engagement strategies in higher education. So whether it's a virtual tour or holding a Google Meetup, or I've seen people actually have scholarship competitions online for their campuses so that students from all over the world can participate. I think it's a really good idea to engage with your faculty and your staff and your current students as well to help bring your campus alive. So utilize that group as well. Emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that's been a hot topic a lot ever since we had the decision for affirmative action at the Supreme Court. But some colleges are implementing targeted recruitment efforts to attract diverse student bodies because they understand that there is a need to reach out to underrepresented groups on campus, first-generation college students, low-income students, to create that inclusive environment for their campuses. And finally, holistic application review. And I think that's something that we've really moved to in a post-pandemic way. Some schools have gone back to using ACTs and SATs as part of that, but more and more institutions are looking at a holistic application review process that considers more broad range of factors, including academic achievement, as they make sure that they are admitting students who are going to do well on their campus, who are going to not necessarily fit in, because we talk about fit all the time, but maybe it's students who will thrive on your campus. And obviously, we're going to talk about personalization again, personalized communication and family engagement, making sure that you are reaching those folks and really the people who are influencing your students, moms, the dads, the grandparents, the caretakers, making sure that you are having a solid communication flow with those folks as well. Personalization is key. Personalization is key. In terms of personalization, maximizing engagement with prospective students and their families involves tailoring communications and outreach. So one of the things that we need to do is segmentation. Some folks call that modern marketing. Folks, I've been in the business for 28 years. I started as an admissions counselor 28 years ago this August, and we were doing segmentation then, and that was before we had, I hate to say it, we had websites. So segmentation of academic interest, where they're located, what kind of sports they're into, or what instrument they may play. Are they involved with different clubs and organizations at their school or in their church or wherever in the community? What kinds of things can you use to bona fide your position with those students through that? But it's segmentation, folks. Don't let anybody fool you. 2, customized content. I think that's a huge thing. Developing personalized content that speaks directly to the interests and concerns of your prospective students and their families. You have to listen. Okay, I think that's one thing that we sometimes forget is we're trying to build out these communication plans, and we know these messages we need to get in front of people. But if we're not listening to what the students want or what the family needs to hear about, whether it's about financial aid or whether it's about safety and security on campus, or, for that offensive lineman who wants to know if they get gravy on top of their fries. I don't know, West Lib. Katie Cooper, if you're on the line, I saw that you registered. Fries with gravy was a big thing back in the day. So hopefully they're still serving that in Rogers Hall. But customizing that content about extracurricular activities and campus resources is a really big deal for a lot of these students because they're trying to make a holistic choice as they're going through that. Interactive communication channels. Okay, so when you're talking about interactive communication channels, we're talking about interactive webinars like we have today, or you can do social media Q&As. You can go Facebook Live. You could go on LinkedIn Live, those kinds of things. Giving the opportunity to get live information to a student or that family member so that you can, once again, hear and address what they need as a family to make this decision. Tailored events and experiences. And we talked about this in a previous webinar too, with Kat Hollins, who is Capture's trainer. And when she was on campus, she would have tailored events and experiences depending upon where they were in the funnel during the year. So whether it was a campus visit day where you just kind of walk everybody around and you get to meet faculty, or there was academic workshops where you bring certain people in and they actually sit in classes, student panels, one-on-one meetings with faculty, staff, students, coaches, wherever that student is within the process and whatever their needs are to make that final decision, making sure that they can have a tailored event that they have just for them, within maybe in a group atmosphere, but maybe even just on an individual basis is a key thing. We're looking at personalized follow-up. And I hate to say this, but when I got married, we had to write out all our thank you letters. Thank you for coming. Thank you for eating our cake. Thank you for, the nice gift that you had given us. There is nothing more special than getting a handwritten note or a handwritten postcard from somebody on the campus if you made contact with that person. Again, it shows that you care. It shows that that their personalized communication flow is coming from you and that you're listening to them, that you're hearing them, and that you're important to them. So making sure that you sign that letter or making sure that you send that note is a big deal. And finally, data-driven insights. Use your data analytics. Actually, we have two more. Data-driven analytics is important. Use your data, your CRM, your marketing automation. They're going to tell you who's doing what, when, and where, so that you can address what they're missing. If a student or the family is spending a lot of time on your financial aid website, or part of your website, you might want to pick up the phone and call them on the phone and say, hey, what kind of questions do you might have about financial aid? What questions do you have about housing? What questions do you have about the meal plan? Whatever they're spending extra time on. You don't have to do it in a creepy way, but you can just, tell them that, I'm calling just to talk about this. And they will appreciate that. And lastly is this part of adaptive messaging. Continuously monitor and adapt your message based upon prospective students' feedback. What we tend to do and what we've always done is we've kind of worked it down the funnel, right? We've always worked the messaging down the funnel, and then they deposit, and then there's a little bit more after that, and it's over. But there's something now called the continuous feedback loop that we need to be doing as an organization and as we work with students, listening to what their needs are, when they need it, and documenting that so that those questions can be answered in a bigger way for more students, because the other students are having that same conversation. But it's important that you're able to increase that interest and excitement of the institution by ultimately improving those enrollment outcomes by talking to students where they are and when they're there. So again, adaptive messaging is a big deal. So lastly, and then we're going to get you out of here today. It's going to be a quick one. Clearance is important. Now, a lot of people call it clearance. Some people call it matriculation, but I've got a resource that we're going to give to you at the end here where you can go download it on the website and give it to your counselors. But clearance is important. Why? It reduces stress on the incoming student, their family, and your team. If you work a good clearance setup, and we'll describe it a little bit more here in a second, it will reduce stress. And hopefully over the next 30, 45 days, you can start to relieve some of that stress. You identify students' needs as they navigate their enrollment journey. So if you're seeing that you're having good contact with somebody and all of a sudden then they don't turn in their housing form, or maybe they don't look for a certain piece of paperwork, or they don't pay their deposit in a timely fashion and they drop off, you're identifying that piece of that enrollment funnel again, and you're able to address it sooner. But having a checklist, which we're going to hand out here in a second, will help you navigate and help them navigate, because you can provide them those personal reminders, whether you send them a quick note, quick email, quick text, say, hey, I need this from you so we can keep moving. Keeps enrollment process moving forward. We all know motivation and momentum count. So as you make contact with that family, as you make contact with that prospective student, as they complete certain pieces for you in this clearance project, you are able to continue that momentum, get those pieces done, so that this summer you can find yourself maybe kicking back a little bit, do some golfing or visit the beach or the mountains or whatever it is that you want to do this summertime, but helping them through that process a little bit more, but keep the enrollment process moving forward. And it helps finally with mitigating student melt. We all know that melt is going to happen late this year. It is going to happen. There hasn't been a lot of melt with a lot of the institutions that I've talked to. But once financial aid comes out, we all know that once financial aid comes out, a lot of times that's when melt happens. So we're talking about, this is a melt mitigation piece, because if you can get a student all the way to the door, they're most likely going to enroll, right? So, and finally, it facilitates communication across campus. When you involve more people across campus in this process, and let me show you what it looks like here. It brings the different offices together, right? So there's this life cycle of clearance that I like to use. So there's admissions, there's student financial services, there's student affairs, academic affairs, and marketing. So from an admissions perspective, are you getting those final transcripts? Are you putting out that welcome messaging? Are you thanking your school counselors, to Ed's point earlier? Reaching out to them, see if they have anybody left, I think is another thing that that we can be doing as well. Students are applying late as well. But thanking those counselors who are sending you students, and then make sure you're doing those virtual and on-campus visits. From a student financial services perspective, you're looking at parent communications, what that bill might look like moving forward. How are they going to pay? What kind of payment plans are there? You don't have to wait for a financial aid package to go out to talk about payment plans. You don't. You can educate folks up ahead of time about the options for payment plans, additional loans, those kinds of things, so that when the financial aid package comes out, then it becomes more of a, what can we do to help you get through this process, not explaining what a prospective student loan might be or what the Pell Grant is, those kinds of things through that. When it comes to student affairs, room and board, have they registered for housing? Have they registered for their meal plans? Campus culture. All your clubs and organizations could be reaching out to all of these students right now, whether it's in a postcard, or whether it's an email, or whether it's joining them on social media, those kinds of things. And then also there's always a big student survey that Student Affairs likes to do. Like, what do you guys want to participate in this fall? Or what are your attitudes about these certain topics? Because that helps with programming, right? So getting that stuff out early is important. For academic affairs, prepping the faculty knowing what kinds of students are coming into what majors is a big deal. It helps them plan as well and make sure that your faculty are ready to receive those students, because that information is going to come late this year. Registering students for classes, making sure that they're getting the right classes at the right time to meet their expectations for class, and then setting that academic expectation. You're going to come here and you need to study 4 hours for every hour in class, or whatever that might be. But getting that information out to the prospective student ahead of time, letting them know that the first 2 weeks of school are going to be, a change for them, is going to be important. When you talk about marketing, it's huge. If you are a marketer on your campus and you're in charge of your website, I can tell you, I was on 2 different college websites today, non-partner websites today, and they said that the priority deadline for FAFSA was March 1st. One, it shouldn't have been March 1st because ICERs weren't going to start flowing. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that priority deadlines like that are just not going to fit. So make sure that your deadlines are up to date. If you're extending out your deposit deadline, go ahead and just and do that. But make sure that you are putting out a lot of information, especially about your alumni interactions that you're having and your social media about welcoming families and students to your campus very soon. So what's next? So next, what you're going to want to do after you get off of our webinar today, you're going to want to visit our website, capturehighered.com, and you go to the blog section, or you can go to the search bar and just type in the word clearance. There is a blog about clearance there that we have put together for you that we actually posted on March 7th. It's a pretty good blog that kind of walks you through what I just talked about in a little bit more detail. But there's a bigger piece right there. There is a downloadable PDF for you that has a checklist of different things that you and your teams can be doing right now to make sure that you are helping those students get through this process as quickly and as humanely as you can during this time of year. So lastly, Thursday's takeaways, plain and simple. Gang, we're going to make it. We got through COVID. We can do this. It's going to be okay. While the FAFSA has hindered us, you can reach your goals, but you must increase the depth, the frequency, and the channels in which you're communicating with prospective students and their families. If you're only in 2 channels, you're not in enough. But keep listening, keep finding out where they are, and communicate to them properly and what they need to know and when they need to know it. Personalization, again, is key. It's kind of been the undercurrent of this entire webinar. It's kind of the undercurrent of everything that Gen Z demands. I want to know what I'm going to get out of this investment of my time and my resources. And they want to know that the decision that they're making is the best one for them. And so build those relationships and get them cleared, gang. Financial aid's a piece of the clearance, right? But if you can't get to that for another month or so, who's to say that you can't get housing done, get the accepted student day done, getting all these other forms taken care of that are not financial related, so that when the financial aid comes out, the student is already done with those things. They can do their entrance counseling, they can sign their award letter, and then they can just come to orientation and get registered for class. But just get them cleared to enroll, because that will help you with MELT mitigation, number one, and number two, it'll help that student through that process. So that's it for today. Join us next time. Next month, we're going to talk about boosting graduate enrollment. We're going to unlock the secrets to successful inquiry and application generation, because dang, it'll be April. It'll be time to start talking about graduate admissions for fall, and then also into the winter time. So hope to see you on Thursday, April 18th at 3 o'clock for that. Registration will open probably next week for that. If you have any final comments or questions, please put those into the chat. We'll try and address those probably off camera today. But always check us out on the web or any of our social media aspects. So, gang, thanks again for joining us. Thanks again to Ed Recker for joining us to talk about FAFSA, and we'll see you again real soon. Thanks, everybody.